Welcome to Devalued with Mike and Caroline, the place where we talk about art and money and how creative people are navigating the ever-changing landscape of trying to make a living for their work.
We're going to be interviewing all types of creative people, and we'll be talking about all types of issues that creative people face. We hope you'll get something out of it. We're excited to welcome you to Devalued. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Caroline.
Who are we talking with today?
Today we are talking to Rob Mazurek, who is one of the legendary avant-garde composers, painters, and all-around bon vivants of our era.
This one got a little heady.
It was one of my favorite Devalued episodes of all time.
Me too. There's a reading at the very end that I hope everyone will stick around for because that was honestly my favorite part.
Yeah.
Really mind-blowing. We talk about the meaning of it all.
Why people do it, why he, has a drive to create, the need to share it, and really a lot more. This was a really beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and if you're out there and, kind of looking for inspiration or a sign or something about your creative journey, I hope you'll find something in this episode.
Let's do it.
We'll start with our traditional first question. Do you think art and money go together?
Do I think art and money go together? That's interesting. I certainly think making art is an amazing thing to do in life, and one should be compensated for the hard work one puts into something. So for that, yeah, but I think that about anything anyone does, the energy and the time put into it. I was just talking to my wife last night about just nurses, because I happened to go to the doctor. We had a doctor's appointment, and I said, man, doctors, teachers, these people should be paid millions of dollars. And artists are there and doing great things. And of course, my goal with with any art I do or anything I do at all is just illumination. So to make some kind of living and be able to have resources in order to create these illuminations, which can be created from a handful of dirt as well. It doesn't have to be, a $9,000, aluminum stretch canvas, So, yeah, they do go hand in hand. They have to go hand in hand. You need money to live. That's the only way to survive.
Yeah. And I wonder, especially with work that you do, you're like the classic multidisciplinary artist where you do paintings and film and, obviously music. So are there still opportunities for you to participate in all of those fields in the way that you would like to, or has that kind of, have the opportunities gotten less and less as you've been in your career?
It actually keeps opening up. So it's becoming more and more balanced in the way of doing sound work or doing visual work or doing, I do a lot of writing too. So, yeah, it seems to be opening up. I feel like I'm just starting actually, and I'm 58 at this point, and I've done quite a bit of things so far, but I still feel like I'm just warming up, So I'm actually, getting actually more opportunities to do these multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary works, and probably the right amount. I don't know. I always think one could always be confronted with a little bit more, and that's probably the right way to put it. I love to be confronted with stuff like take this place and do this with it, or, I've been kind of blessed for at least, I don't know, 10, 15 years, 20 years. I only do exactly what I want to do, and a lot of things come to me I think because of the hard work and, what I've done in the past, and also new ideas. So, yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question.
Yeah, it does completely. And you're the first person that we've had that would identify themselves as a composer. And I wonder, like, how did you get into that? And how did that become like the career that you decided to go for yourself?
Well, I started playing trumpet when I was 10 years old. And soon after that, I became interested in jazz music. I became enamored with Miles Davis, at an early age, Sun Ra also. But I was also interested in classical composition. So earlier on, I was also interested in Stravinsky and Bartok and this type of thing. So I had not only trumpet teachers and jazz private teachers that I worked with in Chicago, but I also had an amazing composition teacher, Ralph Dodds, who taught at Roosevelt University at the time. And I started studying with him. I think I was 14 or something, so we started doing that. And he was an amazing teacher. And he was an amazing teacher because we not only studied composition and ear training and everything, but he also insisted that I know about art, that I know about other musics, that I know about literature, that I know about poetry, like different disciplines. So he was very much, at a young age, I was made to go to the Art Institute to look at paintings and come back to my composition lesson and speak about a favorite painting, for instance. So I'm not sure why. I think I was just listening to records and stuff, and it became very interesting to me the way sound is put together. So as I said, being confronted at an early age with Miles and Charlie Parker and Sun Ra and Stravinsky and like all this. And I think I got interested in Stravinsky because maybe in a Miles Davis interview, he said he was interested in Stravinsky, or Charlie Parker said that or something. So, and then I just kept going. So then you learn some body of work and try to copy that, and eventually you hopefully find your own voice. And I think I'm probably starting to get there now.
That's such highbrow taste for a kid.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an experience where I have an uncle that is, I would say, is very highbrow, snooty. And I was listening to Led Zeppelin in high school, and he bought me Jack Johnson by Miles Davis, and he was like, "This is way better."
Let's say equally is great. Come on, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, they do, for sure.
I was also listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath in high school, because of course all my friends were into this music. So, you'd go to the concerts and everything. It'd be amazing. And be confronted with a whole nother, parameter of what sound can do, because you're listening to these gigantic Coliseum, when you're listening to Rush in the third row, it's like, it's quite a visceral experience.
Do you remember the first time where you wrote something or composed something and it was successful? Either in, where you had an audience for it, or, someone paid you to do it, or what was that like?
Well, I was always writing compositions for jazz groups I had early on, even before the first records. There's plenty of material that I have to find, actually. But now that you bring it up, the first thing that comes to mind is I studied with a composition teacher at DePaul University as well, and I wrote a string quartet. And when that was performed for the first time at the concert hall church at DePaul University, it kind of freaked me out, man. But strangely, it's a strange question, because years before that, I'm like an 18-year-old kid at DePaul making this thing, which had a very strong impression on me, which made me feel like I can go on, But I also wrote a full orchestral piece for flamenco dancers, Pascual Oliveira and Maria Oliveira. I forgot their name. But they were amazing flamenco dancers in Chicago, and they had commissioned me to write this full orchestral piece. I was just talking about this the other night because the joke was I wrote this full orchestral piece, and then they were going to play it with the Jacksonville Symphony, and then like the Honolulu Symphony, and then Milwaukee Symphony, just to start, But they didn't have enough money in the budget for me to go there and listen to it, so I didn't hear it. Didn't hear the second concert. The Milwaukee concert came, and went up there. My folks and family are from Chicago, so we all drove up north to see this thing. I was so excited, and they're telling me that it sounds amazing and blah blah blah. I just know how it sounded in my head and on my little tiny keyboard in my $400 a month, rat infested apartment in Chicago. So I was like, what's going to happen? And they do the first half of the concert, then the second half of the concert comes. The conductor gets up there, they're ready to go, and all of a sudden, thunder and lightning and a torrential downpour. It was an outside concert. Killed the whole concert. I didn't hear it there either. Funny thing is, I've never heard this composition, this orchestral thing. And I just remember that Maria, the main flamenco dancer, who used to be one of the main ballerinas in the Madrid, that hardcore Madrid flamenco group or something. She said when she heard the introduction to the piece, it made her weep, and she said it felt like giving birth. And when she told me this, I started crying, and I'm actually tearing up now, but yeah, sorry.
That's beautiful.
Because they both passed away soon after that. So, sorry. And those memories so long ago, but it's so clear. And just those words from her too were so encouraging and amazing. I thought, I have to keep doing this because people are feeling things from this. I'm feeling things from this, and then other people are feeling things from this. So I thought that's what I need to do: compose, perform, make things that have the capacity to illuminate.
I think people are often looking for some sign that they're on the right path in their life, especially creatives, because there aren't set goals. There's not an annual raise or a promotion or a ladder to climb necessarily. So moments like that can really be the thing that tells someone they need to keep going.
Yeah. I think we all need that, and it's I've been fortunate for that it somehow keeps happening. So I just keep going, because that I was 18, 20 at the time. This is 38 years later, and I'm still don't know what I'm doing, but I know that's what I have to do. Yeah.
We haven't talked to many people in the classical realm, and I liked the imagery of that disparity that you mentioned, where you're in a rat-infested apartment and the people performing your piece are in this very grand setting. We talk a lot about kind of wealth disparity. It kind of just naturally comes up in these talks, but in that realm of music in particular, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about the conditions that the people who write the music or compose the music are living in.
Yeah, I was really young though too. I grew up perfectly fine in a middle class family in a suburb of Chicago and born in Jersey City. But when I moved out on my own, I was like, I'm on my own. I'm going to do this myself. So I didn't, run home every time something was insane, like eating raisin bran with water or something.
That's
I can do
horrible.
this. I could do this for a few days and just make it to the next, gig. Because back then, I was playing too, so do these $50 gigs and just trying to get enough to make the rent and eat something and keep the faith that something's going to happen. So I kept getting a little better as the years went on, a little better, and to the point of having this house here. That I have a really nice sound studio and painting studio and house here in Marfa, Texas, and it's working.
How old were you when you realized that it might work, that this dream that you had that you might be able to actually do it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I had a weird drive. I mean, I was in high school. I wanted to drop out of high school and just I hated school. I just wanted to go to Chicago and learn how to play music and compose music and learn how to play jazz, classical music, everything, a little further on painting, that wasn't immediate, but it was soon after. I always kind of had this drive. So there was, to me, like no question that I wasn't gonna, there was no question that I wasn't going to stop. No, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
No plan B.
Yeah, there wasn't, because even my family were like, plan B, what are you doing? This is crazy. There is no plan B. There's no fallback plan. There's no, if I had to get a little job to make a little money, I would do it. And I did it, but very sparingly. And the rest of the time I devoted to learning a craft. And I just, I don't know. I never thought of failing, although I failed a lot, but I never thought of failing in the way of I'm going to stop this and not do this anymore, because of course one needs to fail a bunch in order to, succeed, at least as far as I'm concerned. I don't know anyone who hasn't failed at some point and then, rethought some things and regrouped and came up with something maybe even more interesting,
Were you kind of following the path of people before you, or did you feel like you were fully carving out your career path in a new way?
Well, I mean, I read a lot of books. So I read the Miles Davis books and the great Dizzy Gillespie book, To Be or Not to Bop, which is basically a Bible of a history of jazz music, really. And of course, I was reading everything I could get about Stravinsky and Bartok and Weber and later Boulez and and then Steve Reich and Philip Glass and all this kind of stuff. I even had a very interesting short talk with Philip Glass once when I was in my 20s, and I was actually studying with a composition teacher from University of Chicago named Easley Blackwood, amazing composer, kind of dealt with microtones and complex music, and I went to a book signing because I had read Philip Glass's new book and I thought it was very interesting. And he was at a bookstore, so I brought the book there for him to sign. And he asked me what I did, and I said, "Oh, I'm studying with Easley Blackwood," and he knew Easley Blackwood. He was like, "Oh, Easley Blackwood, he's the composer who makes very complex music that not too many people want to hear, And that kind of took me aback. I was like, I guess, well, it is kind of true, but it's also, it is great music. And he said, let me tell you something, give you advice, write music that people want to hear. He said, and I thought that was just such an amazing thing to say, especially to a young composer, because you can take that many different ways. You can take that as an absolute, but you can also take that as just one way to look at it. Yeah, of course, I want to make things that like I talked about, that illuminate and connect with people. I'm not an artist in any sense that just makes something for myself, although one must make it for yourself, because if you're feeling it, then the hope is that someone else will feel it. So even that's not an absolute. But I guess what I'm saying, I was reading a lot of books and meeting people and studying. And did I get off the track of the question?
No, not at all.
That's what this is for.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
We're talking about, anyway.
Well, do you agree that you should make music that people want to listen to?
I want to make music that people want to listen to. Absolutely. But I don't approach it as something where I collect what's happening. Although I love what's happening now. I love what's happening every moment. I loved what was happening 20 years ago,
Yeah.
I probably loved what the sounds I heard when I came out of the womb. I don't know, but you build up a vocabulary in all these disciplines, and my main goal is just trying to fuse all those things. So between the vision, the sound, the moving video stuff, the writing and stuff, I'm trying to make it all one interesting thing, rather than compartmentalizing things into maybe, I don't know, what's popular or what people want to hear, or what we think people are listening to in the day. Mm-hmm. I'm creating this vocabulary in order to use it in my own personal intrinsic way. And it's like, for me, that's the work.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you really benefited from the humanities approach to education, where, you learn about painting and its interconnectedness to music and film and literature. And that kind of education style is always under attack these days. And like, people that go get liberal arts degrees are like, in the Fox News world are like called like useless prats or whatever. And now, but like your work is so clearly the result of this multi-dimensional approach to art. Yeah. And I could see it in everything that you've done. And how important is that foundation and education in your work?
I mean, it's almost like one has to find their own education in a way. I hated high school. I had the worst time there. I was a failing student. Nothing interested me there at all. Nothing, band a little bit, I got to play and direct the jazz band a little bit and do stuff that way. That was, 1 hour a day. That was cool, or somewhat cool, all the other stuff. For some reason, I just didn't have the capacity to. I did have a media class where, I had a really excellent teacher who tolerated me. He was probably the only one. And, he talked about film all the time, and we would make our own films, and we would discuss those and talk about music. He knew I was into music a lot. So whenever a music question would come up, he'd ask me something, and usually about something I didn't know about, like the Rolling Stones or something. I was like, ask me about Miles or Bartok or Wynton Marsalis even, but not, yeah. So it was really after during high school, I had these teachers, while I was in high school, I had these private music teachers. Like I said, the composition teacher I studied with, I was still in high school when I was going to him. So that was my thing, but that was once a week, But those are the things that stuck with me. His teachings, a few of my other teachers, and just the concept of taking your own time to figure out what your path is. I knew generally what the path was, so I felt lucky in that. I knew I wanted to perform and compose music. I knew I wanted to do that, so that's what I was going to do, no matter what. And then after I got out of high school, that's when I became interested in reading books and studying the things that I felt would benefit in any way, my artistic practice. So I'm not sure what you mean by, like, how do I feel about education? I didn't go to college per se, because after it was so horrible in high school, I still get nervous when people ask me to do like a master class somewhere or something, which I almost turn down everything, but sometimes I'll do it. It just gives me anxiety to go in a classroom, looking at you, and it's like, it's weird. You know what I mean?
Kids are brutal.
Yeah.
So are teachers, but also if you have the right teachers, and you have to have. I also started chanting and studying Buddhism at that time, in my early 20s. So that also centered me quite a bit as far as like the spirituality of things, but which is a whole nother aspect of the thing. It's not just about composition and performance. You're learning how to be an illuminating spiritual being in order to present these rituals to people, and the rituals can be the form of a performance or showing a piece of art, or, I love cooking or making a mole, it's this thing that, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can express yourself and create art, and also kind of, I don't know, I think of it sort of as like worship or expressing gratitude to the universe through these acts of creativity and expression and giving. Because I do think making art is a form of gift giving.
I mean, for me, it is. It's absolute presenting like gratitude. It's gratitude for every breath I have. I think somebody else asked me in an interview a couple of weeks ago about when do you feel like you have succeeded? And I'm like, when I wake up in the morning and I take my first, I can feel myself breathing, then I've won. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, let's go. But realizing just that thing and how important that is to like just being on this planet is, and that gets into just perception and being aware, and it's this awareness that I'm trying to seek as well, being aware of all different sides of things, and being aware of maybe aware of limitations as well, but I don't like limitations so much, but just being aware of things.
I feel like we're kind of brushing up against something that we've kind of brushed up against in other conversations about how art can kind of flow over into this way of living that's a joyful way of living, and an expressive way, and an adventurous way, and a beautiful way to live this life. And I don't know if it's capitalism. Well, actually, I do know it's capitalism that has kind of turned us into thinking that those things are secondary, or maybe even not important at all, which is why we're concerned about art in school and how that's kind of getting pushed off to the side, because there's no way to measure it. Like, with capitalism, we're taught to measure things with numbers, money. You can plainly see if something's valuable based on the the dollars.
Yeah.
But with these kinds of things, it's not so easily measured, and I think people just now think that it must not have value at all. Therefore, the work doesn't have value. But we're kind of trying to figure out, and I guess hear from each other and remind each other that that's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be true, because it's all numbers and statistics, and has nothing to do with the vital life force, So it's, if you see, I mean, that's what's so strange about it. You can make the greatest masterpiece in the world and put it up on Bandcamp, and 3 people buy it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You see that 3 people buy it. There's always more people that listen to it, and you're like, does that count as valuable? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, almost anything anyone does has a value to it. It might not be a good value for some. How do you judge good value and then bad value? Certainly we've heard records that have sold millions of copies that we don't consider very good, So and then that person becomes a millionaire, and that millionaire is judged by the money, not to say that there aren't amazing musicians who are millionaires who, come on, you're going to argue with Stevie Wonder? I mean, it's greatest of the great. I don't know. It's a strange thing. I feel like I make enough to get by, but that's fine with me. You know what I mean? To get to a point where there's the least amount of anxiety and you're able to create absolutely on your own terms with absolutely no interference and no pressure to do something different, or that's why I feel so blessed. I don't do anything I don't want to do, and you can't put a number on that. It's like, to me, it's unbelievable. It's an amazing thing. I can't even put it in words, because it's like, it's miraculous, So I don't even know how I got to this point, other than I just kept doing it, and I'm able to live a very simple life. Simplicity is key for me too, although complexity is also interesting. But just as far as living, just like I said earlier, to be able to breathe, to be able to sit here like this and reach over and I mean, often when I compose, I have a lot of things going on at the same time, and you just, and that turns into a whole thing, then you get the modular synthesizers going, you get a painting going, you get a drawing going, you get, the samplers going, you get a sculpture going in the backyard. It's like, then all of a sudden you have an opera, and you're like, let's do the opera, Then it's like, how do we do the opera? You need, right? You need money to do the opera. I've also been blessed to have certain directors around the world that have given me opportunities to present this work, whether it's in Berlin or Lisbon or Chicago or wherever, so to have those people that understand that you have a trajectory, and it's not just some kind of one-off where you go to you play the gig, then they throw you off, and all of a sudden you're sitting in the back in the mud thinking, what just happened? Then the next band is playing. These type of festivals, I've been go back every 2 or 3 years. Saint d'Hiver in Paris, where we did this the first opera which is not released yet, but we're working on that. But they gave me the opportunity to present that 2 years ago, just all of a sudden, because I have this relationship with them. So it's as much about having people that truly just a handful of people that really believe in you, that also at least makes me keep going, because people just have to say, go with me, and I'll give you something, uh, uh, at least interesting, hopefully astonishing. I mean, that's the goal.
A lot of creative people struggle with the idea of putting themselves out there and developing
Oh,
relationships. And you've been really good throughout your career with collaboration. And like you mentioned, you have relationships with directors and companies that would want to put on your work. Um,
oh.
how did you find that in yourself to put yourself out there and start building relationships?
Well, you start doing stuff, and then you get one invitation, and that invitation, you got to take care of business. You got to show up and be, you, excuse my English, you got to be a badass, you know what I'm saying? and do it. So they're like, whoa, this is really something. We have to keep this rolling. I feel like I am I'm also fairly reclusive. I get there out there some, but sometimes I grapple with my perception of the idea of community. I wish I could do that better, actually. But I wonder if I did that better, I'd have too many opportunities. You know what I'm saying? Because, frankly speaking, I don't want to play 200 shows a year, or be always in a plane. I don't like flying, So for me, if I could do, I don't know, 50 to 100 cool things a year, that are structured beautifully and are fair as far as monetary considerations, but more importantly, that the infrastructures are set up to present the thing in the most greatest way in order to touch the most amount of people. But as far as because I know there are a lot of my friends who are better and more, more involved with community work and doing that. I feel like I need to spend the majority of my time trying to figure out how to put that last chord together, and how to, finish this painting. And then, I don't know. And that's the thing. So I kind of feel like sometimes I don't leave the house for 4 or 5 days, I'm just here to go work in the studios. And my wife is like, you do the shopping, because you should get out of the house.
It sounds like you kind of enter a creative meditation zone.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's totally a meditation zone. And when I get in a groove like that, it's like, things happen. So, some things happen, sometimes disasters happen, but oftentimes from those disasters, this beautiful stuff comes. There's a little piece in the opera that says the edge of disaster brings flowers from above.
That's nice.
Yeah. I want that like on a painting or a sign or something in my house.
I'll send one to you.
I would love that. I mean, that sounds like an amazing experience. That sounds like living in a lava lamp or something, with so much activity happening all the time. And you said you feel like you're just getting started in your creative life, which I think is a great thing for artists to hear, because we're kind of in this weird time now where Spotify tells you, you need to, like, your art that you put out is really only good for this amount of time, because that's when it can get playlisted. And then after that, it's kind of useless to us. Therefore, it's just going to go into the internet. But that's not how art is supposed to be, I think.
if you're coming up in that environment, like I didn't come up into that environment till later, right? But it was like, but still, like, you have to ignore all that and just, you have to make what you have to make. That is the bottom line. You have to make what you have to make, and I know if we're talking about, I'm getting older. I do think of getting older. It's not that I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm going to be, cool forever. I have pangs of like, oh my God, what's going on here? But it's also like this renewed, this freshness of just waking up every day and you not paying attention to those things. Of course, you're going to pay a little bit of attention to it because it's impossible not to. Just like it's impossible to get the news feed out of your iPhone. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible. You're going to see something, and with the Spotify's and Bandcamps and, however, Spotify is a terrible thing, but I'm part of it, and it's also an amazing thing because people get to hear an amazing amount of music and podcast, whatever that maybe they would never come across. I've discovered great music on there, but it's like to pay attention to all that stuff. It's like that just eats your time. So it's like, when are you going to have time to plant the bush? You know what I'm saying? Or like grow the flower. You have to. I don't know. You have to get your hands off that stuff and like pick up the dirt.
And I think that all of these new ways of listening and streaming to music also creates the opportunity for things like Big Ears, which is where I first came across your music and where you're going to be appearing in a couple of months. It creates.
I'm not playing this year.
Oh, you're not playing this year. Okay, I'm sorry.
But I actually, at the same time, I have Exploding Star Orchestra in Italy, so it's okay.
Oh wow, yeah, that's awesome.
Keep going.
But it creates opportunities for large people to gather, to hear this kind of underground or obscure music, and all participate it like it's a Taylor Swift concert or something. That's how it feels to us when we're there. It's
amazing.
It is really amazing.
Yeah. Well, we played last year, so Exploding Star played there last year.
Yeah.
And also with New Future City Radio with Damon, and it's an amazing experience. Big Ears is I think the preeminent festival for no one else does that. I mean, me and Damon will play the Winter Jazz Fest in New York next week. So that's scattered venues. I don't know if you guys know about this. The Winter Jazz Fest in New York. It's like 100, 200 bands playing in scattered venues for the weekend, coming up. That's called Winter Jazz Fest. But Big Ears is special, man. Big Ears is, I haven't experienced anything like that in the US. In Europe, you'll see that type of thing happen a lot more, and that's because they each country and each town in each country, not all of them, but a lot of them put a lot of money towards culture, so they have ways of doing that, and so does Big Ears, which is an amazing way to share energy.
That's one festival I would like to go to every year after going last year. I wept in a cathedral to a harpist with a jazz trio backing her, performing an unheard piece by one of my favorite harpists from the 60s, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Like, this is so crazy and hitting me in such a space that I didn't expect, because I didn't even know what I was going to see at that moment. You just kind of stumble into these shows because somebody else is going, or you're on that side of the downtown area, so you might as well pop in, and your life is changed all of a sudden.
It's amazing, right?
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's like a well curated live playlist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It's so well curated that it's, at least I played the festival twice, and I remember hearing, I don't know how you say it, Jiln, Jlin.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
I don't
but
know that
I know
one.
who you're talking about.
She's an amazing electronic artist,
Yeah.
and I heard that I walked into the space, and all of a sudden she started, and it sounded like marching bands, and just, everybody was rocking. I was like, this is unbelievable. And I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, but I was like, wow. Then you go down the street and you hear something completely different. You go to the next house, something completely different, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
that has to happen everywhere, because
Hmm.
that's what opens the whole thing up. People need to be exposed to more than what we're talking about. You know, I would imagine there are a lot of people who deal with Spotify playlists, but they probably listen to the same thing over and over again. I would imagine. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying people should
You can.
do it. People should do what they want to do, but they should also have the experience that you had, to be able to walk into a cathedral with a harp playing and be blown away. I've never seen or heard that before. This is incredible.
I wanted to ask you about what you said, that everything that you're trying to do is illumination. What do you mean by that?
I just mean this transference of energy. There's energy that comes from everything I do, to be this positive, uh, life-giving thing towards a more utopian future. That's the work. It has nothing to do with anything else. It doesn't have anything to do with money. It doesn't have anything to do with, yes, I make money when I go out and do these things, and sometimes when a record does well, but there's no part of me that does it because of that. It does it because we need to make the earth and the universe and everything around it. We have to illuminate everything with whatever we have, and we have this. Everyone has this innate, beauty and kindness and energy in them. It's just amazing how you're just constantly bombarded by the negative. So it's hard. I don't know. It obscures everything, and then paying the bills and doing this, and having to feed your children, or fighting a war. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's so many horrific things happening that don't make any sense. So you have this chaos going on that seemingly can't be controlled. But I feel like if I plant some of these illumination, I used to call them illumination drones, but drone became a bad word. So I just say illuminations. If everybody thought about casting these illuminations of joy, kindness, energy, I mean, it could shift everything. And I know it sounds extremely simple, but once again, that for me personally, that's the work. That's the thing. It's not about putting out a cool record or making an interesting painting. It's let it reverberate. Let it. I want people to draw off that energy. I want people to take that energy, and then hopefully it opens something up, and then something else happens. So I know it's kind of vague what the illumination is, but that's the illumination, man.
I love it. I love talks like these.
Same. Are you are you coming out with anything new soon, or is there anything that you want to talk about that you've got as far as upcoming projects?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a record that was just pre-released today. They surprised me in pre-release. So there's an Exploding Star Orchestra, small unit recording that just came out on Corbett versus Dempsey.
That's awesome. I love
it's
the Exploding Star Orchestra, by the way. I just have to say that. Fantastic. Yeah.
So this is a small unit. This is a concert we did like days before we did this concert with the full group at the Adler Planetarium and projecting, well, they're called illuminations, but the illuminations on the dome, like 240,000 frames of video I developed to project on the dome while we did this concert.
That sounds amazing.
And it was really cool. So that's also documented and filmed. It'll come out as in some kind of video format or something at some point. But I'm just saying that we did that, and then we did a smaller group at Corbett versus Dempsey, and that's the new record, which is called Spectral Fiction.
You have such great titles. How do you think of these titles? They're amazing.
I love words and titles. I don't know why, but I'm very good at making titles. And then some years back, I started making poetry from the titles.
Yeah.
Writings from those titles, because I think they're very provocative, and then you can move from there. I don't know if I get in a groove with the writing situation, it just flows like that. These things just happen.
You could have your own name generator like Wu-Tang Clan does.
yeah, right. Yeah, my brain. But I mean, this is the thing.
That's
cool. So cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Also one of my paintings. But because you guys like titles so much, the first song is called Equations of Love in Prismatic Waves of Color.
Incredible.
That's great.
It's beautiful, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the second one is called Driftless,
Wow.
But that's based on because when we played at Corbett versus Dempsey, which is a gallery, excellent gallery in Chicago, there's a Sam Gilliam show up through favorite artists. So it was inspired by him. But I'm also, if you talk about writing, I'm very much inspired by Will Alexander. You know him?
No, I don't.
I was going to ask you for a book, Rick, so this is great.
Yeah. If you guys are into it, this Will Alexander Towards the Primeval Lightning Field.
That's a great title too. Wow. There's one thing that I'll read. Can I read this really quick thing?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Please.
From the book that I read it last night before I was going to bed. And I was like, what? I was like, it's really, what he says here is really close to how I feel about what we're talking about in this idea of illumination and stuff. And Will Alexander says, the liberty to pursue the proliferating tenets of the anti-systematic has allowed me to access to a language which vibrates with the consistency of the unknowingness of itself. This being none other than the flow of imagination as living proof of the philosophia perennis. It is a potion striking out in all directions at once, which in the course of its within the course of its expansion brings to view infinite levels of the hidden.
Wow, that is amazing.
It's amazing, and it's basically this idea too that you have to just keep going and try. I was talking about trying to bust through this galaxial ceiling, or this you can say fake world, but that's taken so like weirdly now. But what mass media wants you to believe and think, when you break through this stuff and get past any kind of system, that's when you start to find the really interesting stuff, at least for me. So when I read that, I was like, that was cool. Will Alexander's my guy.
I'm going to go get that right after we get off this call.
Yeah, same.
I feel like I should snap about it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure talking to you both.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Devalued. For more information about our podcast, please visit devalued.show.